Hey, Spuddies, Potato Whiskey here, and welcome to a tutorial on the technology tree. Really, this is actually a much wider tutorial, but it's really about the fact. I'm just trying to explain to people why you shouldn't rush writing. I've been seeing a lot of people tell me, oh, you want to get your libraries up, you want to rush the writing. I've even seen a couple of guides and tutorials going in, describing why and how you want to do that. So I really just want to drill down onto what does the early game look like? Where do you want to settle your cities? What do you want to prioritize getting your hands on in your cities? So obviously at the start of the game, the very first decision you have to make is to where to settle your founder. So if we go to the settler mode here, I haven't actually confirmed the exact number, but I believe if you settle on these blue tiles, you get +5 happiness or something. I haven't had a chance to actually dig into the files or do any A/B testing or whatever. I mean, we could do it right now if we wanted to. You know what? Let's do it right now. Okay, I made a save file, right? And if I settle my city on this grassland tile, we have 5 happiness. Okay. And then we reload. And we settle right here. Boom. And we still have 5 happiness. So as far as I can tell, it doesn't matter with your founder. Wherever you settle your founder, you're going to end up with 5 happiness. Maybe it matters for town halls. I haven't been able to figure that one out. It's something I'll just need to actually sit down and test. But I wanted to talk about a few really focus on this early game thing and talking about, man, there's so much to talk about when we come to Civ 7, but basically don't rush libraries. Okay, that's the goal of this video. I'm going to teach you don't rush this. Go for writing if you want the Great Stele. If you're playing Egypt or something, the Great Stele plus the Necropolis can actually give you 300 gold per wonder you build, which is actually not too bad. Also, Ibn Battuta is kind of a fun leader to play. We'll talk a little bit about that too. And I've actually created a civilization setup with Ibn Battuta, the Mauryan, that really shows that enhances the power of this open early game build order. And basically the build order is you go for pottery or animal husbandry and then the other one. Doesn't matter which one you get first, but you get either. And then you go masonry, and then you go masonry 2, and you go irrigation. And while you're doing this, you build 3 settlers and you go up to 4 cities. This build order is insane. It's insanely resilient against AI aggression. It gets you kickstarted into the game. Everything about it is insane, right? So we're just going to get started with a scout. My recommendation is minimum 1 scout and a warrior. And then you can also just do 2 scouts, 3 scouts, whatever you're feeling. So we kind of do a little scan here. We can see that we're to the north of the map. So scouting north isn't particularly good. We do like to have this gold here. 20% gold towards purchasing buildings is incredibly good. And looking around my city here, you can see I've got a lot of wooded tiles, which means I'm going to go for animal husbandry first because that gives me production on camps and woodcutters, right? Your goal in the early game in Civilization 7 is to get as much production as possible. Food is not very good because every time you grow your city, the next population costs approximately 50% more than the previous one, right? So this one costs 30, the next one's going to cost 45, the next one after that's going to cost 70. It's not quite 50% more, but I want you to just imagine that the cost goes up non-linear or exponentially, semi-exponential. I don't know how to describe it. It gets more expensive. Food becomes less valuable the more of it you have. Whereas production becomes more valuable the more of it you have. Because you just do everything faster. I could start building a granary right away. I don't think you should build your granaries right away. I do think you should build your granaries, but not right away. Instead, I'm going to go for a scout. Second scout. Playing on standard speed, deity difficulty. Yeah. Antiquity age, standard speed, deity difficulty, map random seed if you want to play it. There you go. Looks like I've already found some water here, so I'm going to do a little radar. I picked a really bad scouting direction by accident. That's quite unfortunate. I'll probably settle somewhere up into the tundra eventually. So where do we grow with our first tile? Well, there's kind of a lot of considerations here when it comes to growing. This is a very nuanced thing. But since we're researching animal husbandry, we want to grow to our woodcutters. That's going to be +1 production. We would like to get this gold. The horses isn't very strong. We don't have any tiles that are way stronger than other tiles. These desert tiles down here are pretty good, but I'm going to grow to the gold because the dates are actually pretty decent. +2 food, +1 production, +2 happiness, and a happiness on the tile. So this is a 3 happiness, 1 production, 3 food tiles. That's pretty good. The gold purchasing is nice. +1 gold per turn is quite rare to get early into the game, so we'll make our way towards the gold tile. I've gotten really unlucky with my scouting. That's such a bad scout pattern. I'm going to grab the gold and just keep on scouting, having a look around. Now, again, I could go for a warrior. I always like to go to 3 scouts. 3 scouts feels like the right amount to me in Civilization 7. Scouts are very useful, particularly against deity AI for a variety of reasons. I like doing the radar We've got like a campfire over here. One tip I'll give you for using scouts is try not to use the radar if you're near mountains, because the mountains block your vision, and so you kind of waste a little bit of the power of the ability if you use it near mountains. Like here, this is not very optimal because I'm going to get blocked in some of the directions that I'm searching, but it's fine. And your goal is to try to get around obstacles in an efficient manner. Now we have animal husbandry is completed, okay? Now this is going to give us access to the saw pit. And we want to build a saw pit as soon as possible. However, we do want to finish the scout because the scout has a lot of potential. A lot of people think that the best thing to do is to focus on a single warehouse building. Really, you want to get at least 2 warehouse buildings, and you want to build them outside of your capital city center on an adjacent tile. And there's a very simple reason for that. There's a hidden ability of your palace that the game doesn't tell you about, is if you build 2 buildings adjacent to the palace, you get +1 science and +1 culture on the palace, which also boosts the specialists that you put on the palace. So basically, if you build buildings adjacent to your palace gets +1 science and +1 culture, which is very, very powerful. It has an adjacency bonus for quarters. Quarters are when you build 2 buildings in the same tile. So I'm going to go straight for pottery. Pottery is going to improve our plantations, improve our clay pits. Bish bash bosh. So let's cross over here and we'll do a little radar scan. Very nice. We found this cave over here. I can't remember what they do. I think cairns. I remember the luxury encampments are happiness and culture. Each type of thing has a different boost. Oh, I do like to get culture early, particularly on Ibn Battuta. We have a narrative choice. There's our +2 wildcard points. So the really interesting thing that you can do with Ibn Battuta is if you take an expansionist point, you can get the 25% training towards settlers, right? Boom. And then you can either supercharge your city for specialist growth. I argue this one is worth, or go for these 2 points or these 2 points. I think going for these 2 points here gives you huge tempo when you're settling as Ibn Battuta. Like it's actually insane how much tempo you can get, in particular when you're playing the Morians. And then if you just never want to have to deal with independent powers invading you, take a militaristic point, boom. Now you've got +5 combat strength against them and you annihilate them. This is like one of my favorite openings, is the expansionist militaristic point. I think it's a really, really good opening against AI. I think a lot of the other ones are good, but it's my favorite opener. Now, what we want to try to do in this city is to identify, this is where map pins would be incredibly useful. I want you to like imagine color coding tiles, okay? So you see this tile right here. I want you to imagine what we're looking for are tiles with at least 2 adjacency for one of the adjacency groups. What's an adjacency group? Culture and happiness is an adjacency group. If we look at the monument here, right? You can see here, it gets culture from mountains, natural wonders, and wonders. If we see the villa, it gets happiness from mountains, natural wonders, and wonders. So the adjacency bonus of happiness and culture is the same. So we're looking for mountains. You can see here, here's a +2, here's a +2. What we want in our empire is at least 2 +2 adjacency tiles of happiness and culture per city. And the reason, not per settlement, per city. And the reason we want that is because the game gives you 2 happiness and 2 culture buildings every age, which means we need 4 building slots. Each building slot has 2 tiles. So bish bash bosh, we need 2 tiles, right? So we put a culture and a happiness building here. We put a culture and a happiness building here. Boom. Then we're also looking for blue adjacency tiles. What are blue adjacency tiles? Those are, with the library here, +1 science for adjacent resources. So we're looking for resource adjacency, and it's the same with the production buildings, the barracks over here. So we can see if we have no +2, we have no good blue adjacency tiles. Here's a +1, and here's a few +1s. 1, 2, 3. We can't even reach this one. Here's a +1. We can't reach any good blue adjacency, right? We just don't have very good blue adjacency. And this is where building wonders can come in. You can use wonders in your early game to set up a better blue adjacency tile. So for example, if I were to build a wonder, well, ideally I would have built a wonder where my palace is to boost these 2 tiles so I could have 2 blue adjacency tiles. And then we're also looking for 2 green adjacency tiles. Green adjacency tiles are for your gold buildings. That's the way that I think about it, right? And that's just water. You can see here, the bath and the market, they both get food and gold for coastal terrain, navigable rivers, and wonders. So if you put it right here, boom, 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 you end up in a really good spot. Okay, so that was a really long-winded way to say, where the hell are we going to put our saw pit? Well, we don't want to put our ageless warehouse buildings on any tiles that have good adjacency. Rather, we want to use our warehouse buildings to reach tiles with good adjacency. So I'm going to build my saw pit right here, because it doesn't take up a tile with good adjacency. And I also get +2 production out of it. The reason that we're building the saw pit first is because we have mostly grown to vegetated tiles with woodcutters on them. Now, we're going to choose a civic. In my opinion, in the vast majority of games, the very first thing you want to go for is mysticism. And the reason is you want to get your pantheon up pretty quickly. You want to get your capital city to have all your warehouse buildings, and you could do you kind of want to think of the altar as a warehouse building. There are situations in which I would recommend going for your unique civic trees, depending on the civ. For example, if you have a way to get culture, it's not bad. And I want to talk specifically about the combination of Moria and Ibn Battuta. The combination of Moria and Ibn Battuta will come online once we actually have our altar. But science is really good because science is incredibly hard to get a hold of in the early game. Oligarchy is nice because it gives us the building construction, which allows us to supercharge our cities, and production is king. So I would say either despotism for that extra science or oligarchy for the extra production. It really just is a question of, like, if you spawn near terrain with extra science, you might be able to skip the 20% science buff, but we're pretty far away from any of the tropical terrain. So I might go for the despotism here for the extra science, because I'm going to just need that science. And then again, there might be, like, the growth here is really, really strong. There's also a lot of culture up in here on the Taiga. So perhaps you want to lean into your bonuses, right? Or you either want to lean into your bonuses or cover your weaknesses, right? Those are generally the two ways that you want to go. I like oligarchy because I like being able to turn happiness into even more growth, even more food, even more production. So, but I do think that despotism and classical republic are technically better. Tool making, I mean, there are situations in which I think charismatic leader is especially because the +2 culture can lead to you having really strong timings on getting your pantheon up. But I just like the production. Production is king. Shaves turns off buildings, like brought this down a turn. +1 science. Science is a lot harder to get early in the game compared to culture. I find culture much easier to get because we're going to be able to build our monuments really early because of our build goes towards masonry so early. So yeah, science, like I almost always take science over culture when I'm playing this style. And I do think this is like the strongest style that's available in the Antiquity era at the moment. I don't know if it fits for the multiplayer meta, but definitely for against the AI, this is the style that I've had the most success with. And this is the style that I'm literally making a video on right now to teach you how to do. So we've met Egypt. My personal opinion, always give a friendly greeting unless you're playing Napoleon, who benefits from the version of Napoleon that benefits from negative relationships. Having positive relationships with the AI just saves you so many headaches because they're less likely to declare war on you. You can also do a trade maps. I prefer to save my influence for making friends with city-states, but like, how good is this city-state really? Maybe trading maps could be cool, right? I don't know. Personal preference, personal style. Like, here we go, economic city-state, and that's what we're talking about. I definitely want to be friends with them. When it comes to taking science or gold, I would lean on the side of science, but in this particular situation, I'm going to take the science because I want the +1 food on plantations, the production on clay pits, all this stuff. The science tempo is actually really, really strong. Now, most games, I'm going to say go for masonry. However, unless you don't actually have mines and quarries, there's no point. But you want to rush masonry too because you want that +1 production on production buildings. Because these warehouse buildings count as production buildings. There are warehouse production buildings, so that gets them +1 production per turn. So this gives you so much production on gold tempo, in particular when you start settling. I do think the gold would have been better. I do think it's worth it to support this. This is a 60% increase in our science. This is a 20% increase. 60% is ridiculous for getting your early pantheon. I think supporting that once really early into the game. That's the only time that I think endeavors are actually worth supporting, is like super early into the game. I think as the later the game goes, the less worth it they are to support. But really, really early, they're worth it. Otherwise, I will just accept, right? +2 gold per turn. Thank you very much, my lady. In this particular situation, I'm going to go for the 30% production towards constructing buildings for 10 turns because I am building a lot of buildings, and I'll plug in charismatic leader for even more culture. I'm going to build a brickyard on this exact same tile, but I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until the lumber mill is finished so that I can show you. So I can get a scout or a warrior. I'm going to get the warrior and then just fortify them in place. Beautiful. We met another player. It's Harriet Tubman. How's it going, Harriet? Nice to meet you. Perfect. We finished the saw pit So now we're getting +2 production from that, plus production from itself, +1 food, all that stuff is beautiful. Then we can place the brickyard, okay? You'd see here, by placing the brickyard here, we're going to get 1 science and 1 culture. That's amazing, okay? +1 science and +1 culture is a 10% increase in your baseline. +1 science and culture is insane. We could also start building settlers. I don't think you need to get your settlers out very quickly. I think I would rather develop my capital rather than go for settlers. Like, my recommendation is get at least 2 warehouse buildings and maybe an altar, depending on the pantheon you went for, before you settle. If you're playing correctly, you should be able to do that without really giving up any cities, any of the best city locations. If you have an amazing natural wonder to rush to, I could maybe see stopping off for a settler first. Your main objective is also to keep your scouts alive. Don't risk them. Dead scouts have no eyes. That's the way I want you to think about that. So we're just going to keep passing the turns here. The city is growing. We're looking for production. I do like the dates though. This is a 4 food tile and a 1 production tile. That's really strong. And we get a resource assignable to the city that will also encourage the AI to trade with us because we have 2 resources in the city now. That is something else you want to consider when it comes to your diplomacy. If an AI is trading with you, basically like having a relationship boost. So getting early resources online is actually quite good. It also depends on if your civilization has bonuses from assigning resources. There are a lot of civilizations that do. All right, we finished another building. There's the altar. One of the best policies in the entire game is priesthood, but we don't want it right now. Right now, what we want to do is check how long is left on our celebration. We've got 4 turns left, so we got 4 turns of a 30% production boost. And the pantheon choice here is where Moria kicks in, because the power of Moria is the fact that you'll be able to take God of the Forest and Stone Circles, which gives you just ridiculous tempo on your empire. I don't know how to explain how insanely strong it is to have both of these. There is another way. You know, if you don't see, oh, I don't have a whole lot of mines, you know what? Maybe you don't need Stone Circles. Maybe you could take Earth Goddess, and now you've got a 3rd happiness building in this age, which ain't bad, right? Or you could take Monument to the Gods if you want to build your cities up. God of Wisdom. I also think God of Wisdom and Goddess of Festivals, that combo is very, very strong if you're building up a strong city. Really, really, really powerful combo with the Morians. It gives you insane science and culture tempo. I think God of Wisdom is slightly better than God of Festivals because science is harder to get. Like, just look, right? I know I've been doing a thing, but science is just harder to get when you're going for this early. When you're playing correctly, science should be harder to get. But my personal recommendation in this situation, because I have so much wooded, it would be God of the Forest, +1 gold on camps and woodcutters, really, really strong. And then like Stone Circles, it's not that amazing, but it's still pretty damn good. But the thing is, I just don't have that many tiles that benefit from it. So in this particular situation, I would go for God of Wisdom. It's always going to be situational based. And then I want to build the altar. Now, where do I want to build the altar? To get the altar as like an extra warehouse building, you don't want to use up good adjacency tiles unless you give it an adjacency boost. So I'm just going to put it here because that gets me closer to this +2 green tile. I think another mistake that people do when they're playing on deity is they bounce around this civic tree. Really what you want to do is you want to pick a side and commit. If you go for the early pantheon, which I think is the correct play, you pretty much should probably go all the way to entertainment and try to get the Colosseum. This will almost guarantee, like if you can get the Oracle and the Colosseum, you will have insane culture and happiness. On the other hand, if you want to go military first, then if you want to go discipline first, if you're playing a civ like Rome, where I think discipline is actually a really good opener on, then you want to go tactics and organized military. You're going to have a hard time beating the AI to these. However, Rome has really good culture, so they will usually beat them. Like, you want to get all of these. Like, in a perfect world, I would not go for my cultural civics here. I would go for mastery to get the Mundo Perdido. However, I don't have any tropical terrain, so I would skip this. But if I had tropical terrain, I would definitely go for that. And then now I'm going to go for public life. One of the things about the culture tree in Civilization 7 is that it really rewards you for going deep to beat the AI on deity. There is also the option of going mysticism, discipline, code of law, citizenship to get the Wei Yang Palace. This is pretty impossible to do, but if you can get the Petra and the Wei Yang Palace, it's actually really, really powerful. But you want to get at least 2 wonders. These are all like really high level tips and ideas that really, like, a lot of these things could almost deserve their own video. But I haven't even been able to, it's turned 24 and I haven't really showed you why, you know, what's so powerful about this build, why it's so good. It takes a while for it to come online, as most builds do, but unlike other builds, this build actually does come online. Whereas I find that library first just never actually goes anywhere. We've got some flooding and stuff over here. So Opane, we would love to become Suzerain of Opane. However, there is another player influencing them. I think it could be worth it to fight for this, so I'm going to add influence in a bit in 10 turns. I know I'm trailing in technology, that's fine. I'm unlikely to get that independent, but you know, you got to give it a shot. Okay, we got a narrative choice. Get a warrior, production towards the units, or happiness towards the celebration. I'll take the happiness towards the celebration. The capital is finished. We could build the granary. If we built the granary here, that's another science and culture. Really good. Really, really, really good. +1 science and culture. It doesn't sound like much. I promise you it is insane. I do think that in this particular situation, it's better to buy the granary and then build our settlers. We want 3. You want to go to 4 cities. Or 4 settlements, rather. So there is masonry, and the important thing that we've unlocked in masonry is the monument building for culture and the +1 production of mines and quarries. I don't think you need to rush the monument. I think it's better to get your settlers out, but you do want to then get that. Now we're going to go for masonry 2, and the reason we're going for masonry 2 is for the +2 production on production buildings. Our capital city has 2 production buildings, so that's going to be worth 2 production per turn, which is an insane tempo increase. We met Niccolo Machiavelli. I'm going to give him a neutral greeting because I want to save my influence to try to steal that city-state. Hopefully he sends me a diplomatic treaty where I get more influence per turn. Oh yes, he did. Thank you. Now when it comes to settling, your first 3 settlers, you want to space them out pretty well. The way I want you to think about this is your first 3 settlers, you should be settling to make cities. And what I mean, not towns, cities. So I want you to think about that. So let's have a look around. We've got this settler over here. There's definitely a really good city down here. We've got like 1, 2, 3. We've got a really good culture tile right there. We've got a really good gold tile right there. We've got an okay gold tile right there. We've got a couple of okay sides tiles, nothing too amazing. I don't want to settle on this river, even if it is for the freshwater. Can I get these dyes, the horses, and the silk? 1, 2, 3. So if I settle on this line, I will get the dyes, the horses, and the silk if I settle on this line. I do think that settling coastally is worse in cities that are going to be your capital because it's hard to get districts fully built on water tiles. But here I think is decent. Here's a nice one, right? 1 food, 2 production, 1 gold, 1 happiness. Boom, perfect. Machiavelli sends me gold. Yes, my settlement's under threat. I'm aware because I'm not defending it. I like playing on standard speed. I think standard speed is the most fun speed. Online speed, I think, makes the game kind of easy and harder in certain ways, but I think the game is just more fun on this speed. I'm hoping these guys actually attack me now and start hurting themselves. They have started trying to plink away at me. I will give you open borders. I'm going to befriend these, influence 4 turns from now. I need to add 1 more support to beat her. Might not work. I need to find diplomatic influence from somewhere. So let's go ahead and found this settlement in place. Talking about this city, right, we've got a really good culture tile, culture happiness tile, culture happiness tile, culture happiness tile. We're adjacent to a bunch of mountains. We've got okay science and production tiles, and then great food and gold tiles right on the coastline. With 4 decent resources in range. We've got elephants, 5 decent resources. We've got sheep, elephants, dyes, horses, and silk. Really good. That's 5, right? Remember, that's going to feed towards our economic condition, all that stuff. All things to consider. I'm going to grab the horses first. Remember, gold in these cities is converted into production, and because I'm playing Ibn Battuta, we get the double growth event. So I'm going to grow to the 2 production tile right there. Boom, perfect. They'll be friends with me in 3 turns, so I don't need to worry about this. 1, 2, 3. So this is the furthest I can settle away from these dyes. This is definitely going to be a fishing town. That's here to pick up a few resources for me. So I'm going to have you slip up around through here to get to 1, 2, 3, this tile. That'll be a fishing town. It won't be a city. I always want you to be thinking about that, right? Is this going to be a city? Is this going to be a town? And depending on where you settle, that's going to set the tone for that settlement. So there's masonry. Our early game build is online. Now we have a capital with 19 production, which is very strong early game. I would say that a really high tempo capital in Civilization 7 is having about 40 to 50 production. That's a really strong tempo. So getting to 20 on turn 40 is very strong. Very, very, very strong. Now my recommendation is to go for irrigation. Think of settlement limit as a happiness boost. That will allow us to go to our 4 city limit and take no penalties. So irrigation is next. And you might be asking, like, okay, Potato, if you're doing all this, where's your science going to be coming from? It's going to be coming from my towns. Oh my God, river flooded in here. I don't think I need to repair anything though. So in my towns, as soon as I have the money, I'm going to be buying warehouse buildings. In particular, looking to increase the productivity. So here's a Nagarika. I'm going to settle right here. Boom. Have 3 settlements, but at least 3 mountains each. Very cool. I'm going to go for a 15% production boost towards buildings in the capital. That's pretty strong. I'm also going to grow immediately to the hides. That's plus 3 gold per turn or plus 3 production in the capital. And then I want to make my way over to the jade. But I always want to be growing to the best tiles that are available. 1, 2, 3. I don't want to take this fishing tile because I want this tile to be in the capital. So I'm going to grow back a little bit. I could take this hides and put it into the capital. Plus 3 production in the capital is quite strong. It'll shave some turns off of some of the things that we're building. We want to get our monument next. You can see here we've got a 4-1. 4-1, 4-1. All of these are really great tiles. All of these are super viable. Personal preference is to avoid volcanoes. Volcano tiles are best worked by rural population. I also would have preferred to settle down this way, but there was a horde of barbarians, horde of independent peoples, and could make an argument for settling up here. Annoyingly, I can't settle on this navigable river. Incense, wine, camels, all that stuff is good. Argument to be said for settling right here. We've got good culture tiles. We've got a good science tile. We've even got... Yeah, if I settle right here, we've got good water tiles. We've got good science tiles. We've got a good mixture of different stuff, and the really important thing is that the city has plenty of room to expand into, which is what you're looking for with your first 3 settlers, right? And you can kind of see, right, around the time I'm getting that 4th city up, that 4th settlement, I'm already working on irrigation, and that should be pretty standard for your games if you follow this build order. It's not going to line up perfectly every single time. I'm going to be sad if I don't get this. I don't think I will get it. I spent a lot of influence on that. I hope you get a refund. So Oracle is definitely something we're going to want to build. Unfortunately, we don't have rough terrain in this city. So we're just going to go straight for the Colosseum, which is also going to be +1 settlement limit. This is where you could make the executive decision is to go for another settler because we're going straight for the Colosseum, which is +1 settlement limit. These are the kind of like small little tweaks and adjustments you can make. I'm going to go for the 20% food here because I'm not really building a whole lot of buildings. And now I'm going to plug in priesthood for that +2 gold per city. I'm going to come into Ujjaini. And now, right, this saw pit is worth 3 gold per turn. That's insane. So I put it right there. Boom. That's just another 3 gold per turn. So now the tempo of this city is growing up, right? And we've also got that insane +1 food from warehouse buildings from this expansionist side of things. And we grew an extra pop. Like, it's just like bam. The tempo on this style is so damn strong. It's such a good, strong economic style that, like, I hope you're starting to see, like, we're up to 36 gold per turn. That's like competitive with the AI. We're competitive on culture with Harriet Tubman. We're competitive. We're not competitive on science yet. We will be. I'll show you how we get there. Look at that. 3 production. Boom. That's 3 gold per turn. Ujjaini. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to have to buy a slinger in here to defend this settlement. But that's just life. I'm going to settle this right here. Boom. It's a beautiful settlement location. We use up a whole bunch of land. We take space. We create space for our empire. This place is going to grow twice. I'll grow here. Oh, look at that. A +2 production tile. Boom. We'll kind of plan and talk about the city later, but for now we're working on Ujjaini. I added support and it wasn't enough. Damn. That's sad. So again, in my capital city, I do like growth. Growth is not bad, but I want to prioritize production and gold. There's a nice 2 production, 2 gold tile right there. Boosh. We grab it. I know I'm over my settlement cap. I won't be for long. You never really want to go over your settlement cap if you can avoid it. It's actually really bad for your empire. I'm going to buy a slinger to defend this town. Unfortunately, you are occasionally going to have... That'll slow your tempo, right? Every slinger you have to buy. It's fine. You could maybe make an argument that, like, oh, if I had less, blah, blah, blah. There's some mistakes I'm making here, right? I shouldn't have invested so much in Oppenay. It's fine. I should have switched to Saguni or something. The Gate of All Nations has been built. Thank you, Machiavelli. Yeah, a single slinger can defend most cities in the early game. This is insane, Machiavelli, what Machiavelli's doing with that settler. I'm just going to say that right now. Boy, it's crazy. So it's turn 50. We have really good tempo. We're 42 gold per turn. We're growing cities. We're growing towns. Let's keep growing to these resources. People are sending us diplomatic relationship actions. We're in good standing with the AI. We could even do production saving in our capital if we wanted to. If you're not aware of the production saving exploits, basically you hold down, you press Shift Enter when you don't want to build something in a city to save its production for a future turn. It's almost certainly an exploit that the developers will patch out, but like it's not a literal crime. So do it if you want. I want to settle 3 tiles away from this iron, so I'm thinking right here to capture a nice chunk of land. That will also get me the salt, the wine, and the silk. As well as the silver, actually. So yeah, this is going to be a great city. You want to be settling for getting all those resources. Personally, I don't think it's a bad idea to build a few military units to send out to defend your cities. I think that's actually strictly a good idea. Unfortunately, scouts can't clear barb camps. Makes me sad. There's irrigation. We now have the +1 settlement limit, which is basically a happiness buff, remember? Settlement limit is happiness buff. So we went from 10 to 25. Perfect. We've got great tempo on that. Now we're getting our celebrations. 2 turns left. We even got a point for science to be that. Boom. +1 science per turn. Ujjaini. Let's grab the brickyard for 2 extra production. That's 2 gold per turn. Slowly building up that production tempo. And now we can go for riding. I don't think you should go for the real. Now is the time you go for riding. You go for currency. You go up this top half of the tree. Or you go riding into bronze working if you want to go on a war path. Or you go straight for the wheel if you want to get siege units. As Moria, I actually do think the correct move is to go straight for the wheel. So that you can get your unique cavalry unit plus ballista. And then just pick someone and go take 2 to 3 of their cities. The way that the game works out right now, if we are on 4 cities, we need to capture 2 cities and settle 1 to get to the second militaristic point, or we need to capture 4 cities to get all the way to the max, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, because of the way it works out. So that's why, generally speaking, I say if you're playing the if you are playing the Antiquity era correctly, you want to get at least 2 of the military legacy points, because that will allow you to make the choice to go for the fealty option for the exploration era, which gives you +2 settlement limit. The more settlements, the better your empire is. So it's really, really strong. And there's kind of 2 ways you can get there. You can either settle 9 cities, if I remember correctly. It's 1 is an easy way to check that. Yeah, you can either settle 9 cities, which is insane, because you're going to be at least... Let me do the maths again. 6 is the standard amount of settlement limit that everyone gets in the Antiquity Age. +1 from Civ usually. So you're going to be minimum at least 2 cities over your limit, unless you're playing something like Rome, if you settle all these. That's why I recommend settle 3 to 4 cities and then conquer 2 to 4 cities, depending on your needs. That's my personal recommendation. I don't think it's good to go massively over your settlement limit. I think it's really bad, actually. I think I've seen a few people, go down that path. I don't think that's good. You can make it work. I don't think it's good. I'm going to go for writing here because I want the library. I want to start simming. We're a quarter of the way, third of the way through the era, and we want to start actually getting somewhere. We could build the Hanging Gardens here. It's not a terrible wonder. Oh, the nice thing is if I build it right here, I actually enhance a couple of different tiles. Yeah, if I build it right here... Trying to think about where the best place to build it is. Technically, the best place to build it is right here, because that would enhance my existing monument, and it would also enhance these 2 tiles, and it would also enhance my altar, which already exists. So that's not a bad place for the Hanging Gardens. Hanging Gardens really good. Really, any wonder is good because it gives you the adjacency bonuses, but the +1 food on farms, 10% growth rate in all cities, and the expansionist attribute point. That expansionist attribute point can be quite good, especially if you apply it to the 15% yields in towns with a specialization. I'll kind of show off that a little bit more. So Ujjaini is now 7 pop. The second your city gets a 7 pop, you want to plug in urban center. This is only true for the Antiquity Age. Do not do this for other ages. So you can see now if I zoom in, basically, any tile that has at least 2 buildings on it will produce an extra science and culture. So you can see here, +1 science and culture. The capital city center tile is not doing that though because there's no granary there. Immediately, I place the granary down. And you can see 2 science, 1 culture. Boom. This is where you get your science and culture from. Do not rush the library. That's not where you get your science. This city is now producing as much science. This town is now producing as much science as a library and a monument. Yeah, you give up the opportunity cost, but this is only good in the Antiquity era. Don't do this in any other age. Personal recommendation, just don't do it. Right, +1 food, +3 production, and a happiness. Boom, perfect tile, great. Yeah, I think I'm going to put my Hanging Gardens right here. I think that's the best one. Mountains aren't as good as they used to be. in Civ 6. They're kind of hard to work around in Civ 7. Let's see if we can make friends. Oh, God damn it, Egypt has already started with that. Whatever. I don't want to get... Well, you know what? I'm going to race her again. I'm a glutton for punishment, dude. Can you tell? Let's settle this city. Yes, we're over our limit, but 16 turns from now we won't be. I'm going to grow to the cotton and the iron. Put the camel in the capital. Take the cotton and put it in the capital. It's the best place for it. And so this is what your build order should look like, in my opinion, in the vast majority of your games. It should look something like this. Do not rush libraries. Libraries are bad. I mean, look, I'm already at 21 science, and only one of my cities has its buildings built. And I haven't even started to look at maybe building the altar here. But it's not what we want to do. Okay, once you have the gold again, I want you to pop into your next cities. We want to buy our brickyards, our granaries, and saw pit. Again, I want to kind of be aware of where I want my culture and happiness buildings, like culture happiness here, science here, gold here. You know, like here's another gold building. So I'm going to put my my warehouse buildings here to the left. It's for production. Building buildings gives the city +1 population, which actually does get it closer to being able to activate its specialization. That's important. It also works for your capital city. Building a building gives a +1 population, which allows you to build settlers sooner. Something a lot of people don't talk about. Probably don't even notice it, right? We're going to build a brickyard here, another +2 production, which equals +2 gold per turn. The city should have grown to 7 pop. Maybe I misremembered how exactly that works. Or maybe it's based on districts being completed. Derp. I feel like the game just made a liar of me. So there's writing. Now we can build a library. Awesome. So now we can get the +2 science. When you consider the amount of tempo we would have lost by rushing the library for +3 science versus having a really strong town right now that's still producing a decent amount of science, right? Oh yeah, sure, we've got like unhappiness and stuff like that, but that's fine. Science is our weaker yield, so we'll go for science first. I'm going to take the codex. Codex is a really strong +2 science per turn. Again, really good. Let's grab that iron, +3 production, +3 gold per turn. I do think it's really good to go for the mastery of writing. I saw a build, someone was saying like you go pottery, writing mastery, and it's like it's just I've never been able to make that build work, even when I then follow it up by a currency rush with specialists and stuff like that. It's just I don't think it's actually very good. I think you're better off going a little bit wider, getting a little bit more of a baseline economy up and running before you transition into trying to get specialists up. I just don't think it's as good. I'm going to add support here. We're down to 16 turns. We will have to do it again. I'm going to grow to the silk because I want the 10% culture in this city. I think that's going to be really useful. In Taxisala, always want to be going for the gold. Food and production in balance is actually really good as well. The city is now 10 pop, so I'm going to go ahead and get itself an urban center. That's +1 science and +1 production on that tile. And if I buy a granary, it's another +1 science, +1 production, or +1 culture. Again, really starting to build up these towns as sort of tech havens. You can kind of start to see how I build up this town, and then this town builds up this town, and then those two towns build up the next town, and we have the hanging gardens. It all starts like, you could kind of see how it all begins to snowball when your towns are all sort of building towards the same goal. I can't believe no one has built the Great Stele. That could be really damn good. If we put it right here, we would get some good science adjacency tiles. Plus it would be our second wonder. I don't think Great Stele is very good though, so I'm going to go ahead and get the library instead. And I'll put the Colosseum here. Put the library right here. It's a +1 science adjacency tile. It's not particularly good, but it's okay. Leader attribute, there's the expansionist point. We can go for 15% yields in towns with a specialization. Again, this is a special Ibn Battuta style that will get you extra yields in your cities. It's really, 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 really strong. And also really fun to play, in my opinion. Like, it's a super, super fun way to play. So there's writing 2. Now we get the science and codexes. Awesome. And once you're here that world is your oyster, I think it's really just a matter of, do you want to go for specialists, then go sailing into currency? Do you want to go for happiness, go for the wheel into military training? Do you want to go for combat, look for your unique unit? You know, it's kind of like, this is where now the world is your oyster, right? You've got a good sim. We're up to 26 science per turn, and we've only built up 2 of our towns. We could begin building up Tosali next. We've got a decent culture per turn. I would say we're competitive with the AI. We're making 80 gold per turn, which is insane, right? That gives you crazy good power to develop your cities. Like, I could start to turn this into a city if I wanted to. I do think it's better to develop all of your towns up and then turn something into a city, unless you want to get some certain wonders built. But yeah, like this is why you don't rush the library, because you don't need libraries. You really don't need them early. You can do it, okay? And you can make that build work. I just think this build is better. Go for pottery, animal husbandry, into masonry, then irrigation, then writing and writing mastery. It's just the build that I have found to be the most reliable. It's the most powerful. It's the best build. It's the best build that I've found. I'm going to play it out a few more turns because I think it's one of these builds that snowballs. Like, it doesn't look that impressive right now, but just wait until I insert more money into Tosali, right? Here's a really good science tile. Tosali doesn't have particularly good culture tiles. It has good science tiles, doesn't really have good water tiles. That's okay. So I just don't want to block any of my good science tiles in here in case I develop this. So I'm building slingers to defend my empire. We just get a few of them. Let's grab that silver. Silver is good for buying units. We can go ahead and turn this into an urban center already. You don't necessarily really want to do that until you have your granary down, until you have all 3 of your warehouse buildings down. That's my personal opinion. All right, perfect. So now we can get started on the Colosseum, and we have rites and rituals, which is +2 happiness in all settlements. It's really, really good. We could take out tool making. Boom. Rites and rituals. Boom. Look at that. Oh, look at that 46 happiness. Look at that tempo we just hit. This is when you hit that tempo swing, right? There's kind of, like I said, there's 2 variants. There's essentially 3 paths you can go down. You can either go like mysticism into entertainment, or you can go chiefdom straight to your unique civics if your unique civics are particularly good and important. You can go discipline into organized military and go conquering with all the really good, like, here's, +2 war support in all wars, a free army commander, 100% like extra pillaging and a military point. Like, these are really, really good. But this is more like the Sim City. If you go to the top here, and now I can just swing back and get my unique civics, right? I'm chilling. Train a settler. I'm going to go for meet all civilizations. Boom. Thank you for the culture. Have trade fruits. Oh, okay. We'll do that eventually. It's not going to be a priority. I'm going to go for currency. I'm going to show you off the sort of more economic, taller style of play here. We definitely want to build the Colosseum. I'm going to put the Colosseum here because it's going to boost my science tile here and eventual science tile here. You could argue that this is better because it's boosting an already existing monument, which is a fairly compelling argument in my opinion. The power of the Colosseum is that it gives you +2 happiness in every quarter in the settlement, which is quite good. So, hey, you know what? I'll do that. I'll do this. Let's boost the existing tile. We've got a new population, production tile. Boom. Just always want to be looking for production. That's the thing that we are concerned with, is production. Yeah, I know the Colosseum is a very long build, but we don't need the garden. We don't need the fishing quay. These are just food buildings. Who cares? Right? And there's no way anyone else is beating us to the Colosseum. Like, there's no way. So now we can just develop Rasilla, and then we can start converting cities or towns into cities. All right, let's go up to Rasilla, and we will build the saw pit plus the brickyard. Even more gold per turn. We're up to 100 gold per turn. Keep on growing. 20% food. Hell yeah. So now we have access to our unique quarter, and we want to make our way towards the sort of capstone of our unique abilities. It doesn't matter which one we get first. It's just like make our way there. So key point of development now. It's turned 75. We've basically fully built these towns, urban centers. Boom. Okay. This will be this would be better as a fishing town. I think it's good as an urban center for now. The extra science and culture is really, really good. So we're up to 30 science, 40 culture. Look at this tempo, right? We're beating or catching up to the AI in science and culture. And remember, when you're playing on deity, technologies and civics are 40% more expensive for the player. So now we can just start converting cities. We just save up gold to convert cities. We can use our gold to develop Patalaputra. Like, I could purchase the Dharamsala and the Vihara to get the Matha for the extra excess happiness. There's a lot of different directions we can take this. Personally, I like to go for the developing of the cities. It's a style. style way of doing things. So I'm like, I'm going to convert Ujjaini. Boom, I convert this to a city. And now I've got a city that's cranking out 18 production per turn, ready to build a whole bunch of buildings, right? Library, monument, all this stuff. Like I want to get up to this tile. I like to use my food buildings as bridges to get to tiles that I care about, like this one. So like I'll put a food building right there. Alternatively, I could just build a library on that tile. It's a +1 adjacency library, which is fine. There's currency. Now we can start placing specialists. The bath is also really good to get because it gives you a 10% growth rate. Really, really good. That 10% growth rate is not to be underestimated. But yeah, getting the wheel is good. Like there's so much. Oh, I lost Sagunia. It's fine. I wasn't paying attention. Anyway, I hope this shows why this is the way that you play. Why, like I hope this explains. Do not rush the library. Do not rush the library. Okay, please. Get animal husbandry, pottery, whichever one you want to get first, whichever one makes most sense for you. Build them both, and then go for masonry and masonry mastery. And then go irrigation into writing. It's just the correct path, in my opinion, if you want to beat the AI in stats. I mean, look at my stats here. I'm making on par science with 2 of them, and I'm making on par culture, right? But my happiness is insane. And you know, depending on the civ and combo and stuff like that you're playing, this is all going to play out slightly differently. But this is the way, okay? This is the way. Anyway, I hope this really explains that build order. This is why we do these things. I want to thank you guys very much for watching. I love you all very much, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.